6 weeks after an employee left a 12-person marketing agency, her login still worked. She hadn't done anything wrong. She'd resigned on good terms, given 2 weeks' notice, had a small goodbye lunch on her last Friday. IT disabled her email account that afternoon. That felt like the obvious thing to do, the thing everyone remembers. Nobody thought about anything else. 6 weeks later, someone on the team noticed a file in the shared client drive had been opened and resaved by an account that belonged to someone who no longer worked there. It turned out she'd never lost access to that drive. It lived in a separate tool that IT didn't manage, the kind of app someone on the team had signed up for years ago with a personal-turned-shared login. She hadn't logged in maliciously. She'd forgotten she still could, opened an old bookmark out of habit while looking for a template from her old job, and didn't think twice about it. Nobody got hurt this time. But the account that could have belonged to anyone with that same URL and password had been sitting open, unmonitored, for 6 weeks, and nobody in the company could have told you it existed, let alone that it was still live. This wasn't a hack. It wasn't even really a mistake, in the sense of one person doing something wrong. It was a gap, the space between we disabled the email and we actually removed every way this person could get back in. And that gap is bigger, and stays open longer, than almost anyone running a small business assumes. Here's the part that surprises most business owners: there is no single off switch. A new employee at a modern small business ends up with access to a lot more than email and a building badge. There's the shared drive, the project management tool, the CRM, the accounting software, the marketing platform, the VPN, maybe an admin panel for the website, a Slack or Teams workspace, a handful of logins that live in a shared password spreadsheet because the tool doesn't support multiple accounts, and this is the part almost nobody accounts for: the Wi-Fi password memorized on a personal phone, and browser sessions on a personal laptop that stay logged in indefinitely because nobody ever explicitly signs out. Offboarding a person from all of that requires knowing all of that exists in the first place. And most small businesses don't have a list. Access accumulated one tool sign-up at a time, over months or years, usually without anyone deciding this is now part of our access inventory. So when someone leaves, whoever handles the departure does the 2 or 3 things they remember: email, maybe the building key, and everything else keeps running exactly as it did the day before, because disabling it never even came up as a step. This is why we turned off her email. Feels like it should be enough, and isn't. The email account was never the whole picture. It was just the most visible 10% of it. The scale of this gap is bigger than intuition suggests. Research on offboarding consistently finds that a meaningful share of former employees retain access to at least one work account or system weeks or months after departure, not because anyone decided to leave it open, but because nobody had a complete enough list to close it. Some studies put the number of ex-employees who could still log into a former employer's systems at roughly 1 in 4, sometimes higher when personal devices and shared logins are counted. Most of those situations resolve harmlessly, exactly like the story in Section 1, someone forgets they still can, doesn't do anything with it, and nothing happens. But usually harmless isn't the same as no risk, and the incidents that don't resolve harmlessly follow a predictable shape: a departure that wasn't friendly, an account nobody remembered to close, and weeks or months of unmonitored access before anyone notices anything unusual, if anyone ever does. Inside-related incidents, including ones involving former employees, routinely take longer to detect than external attacks, for the simple reason that nobody is watching an account they don't know is still active. The financial and reputational cost when this does go wrong: a competitor bid built on lifted client data, a vindictive deletion of files, a shared drive quietly copied on the way out, isn't hypothetical. It's just underreported, because most businesses that get hit by it would rather not explain how an ex-employee still had the keys. So what actually needs to happen on the day someone leaves, whether that departure is friendly or not? First, disable, don't delete, the core accounts immediately. Primary email, single sign-on if you have it, VPN and remote access. Disabling preserves the account for a handoff period and an audit trail. Deleting too fast can wipe data the business still needs and make it harder to see what that account actually touched on the way out. Second, pull them from every collaboration tool the same day: Slack, Teams, the project management board, the shared drives permission list, not just the accounts IT officially manages, but the ones the team signed up for on their own. Third, rotate any shared credentials they knew. If a login was ever typed into a shared spreadsheet or handed over verbally, assume it's compromised the moment that person walks out the door, whether or not you trust them. Fourth, collect company devices and revoke physical access, badge, keys, any hardware tokens, same day, not sometime this week. Fifth, and this is the one almost everyone skips, check personal devices for anything that logged in and stayed logged in. Wi-Fi passwords memorized on a phone. A laptop browser with a saved session. These don't have a clean revoke button, which is exactly why changing shared passwords and rotating the Wi-Fi credential matters even when nothing seems wrong. Here's where offboarding goes wrong in real businesses, for mistakes, all common, all preventable. 1. Only handling the accounts IT officially knows about. The email gets disabled same day. The tool 3 people on the marketing team signed up for 18 months ago, that IT never heard of, keeps running untouched, because it was never on anyone's list to begin with. 2. Treating delete everything immediately as safer than it is. Wiping an account before confirming what data lives only there, or before an audit trail is captured, can destroy exactly the information you'd need if something does go wrong later. 3. Never rotating shared credentials. A login that lived in a spreadsheet or got shared verbally stays valid indefinitely unless someone actively changes it, departure or not. 4. No checklist, no single owner. Offboarding happens ad hoc, remembered differently by whoever handles it that particular week. One departure gets the full treatment because the office manager happened to think of everything, the next gets rushed because it's a Friday afternoon and everyone wants to go home. The completeness of your security depends entirely on who's paying attention that day, which means, on average, it's incomplete. Notice the pattern again, this isn't a technology failure. It's a process failure, and the same one every time. Nobody has a complete list of what access exists, so nobody can be sure it's all been removed. The fix costs almost nothing and takes less time than most people assume. Build a living access inventory, not at the moment someone leaves, but starting now, for every current employee. Every tool, every login, every shared credential they have, updated the moment someone new is granted access to something. This turns offboarding from try to remember everything into work down a list that's already complete. Assign one person as the owner of every departure, not IT will handle it, but a specific name who runs through the checklist and signs off that every item is done. Ambiguous ownership is how steps get skipped. For involuntary departures, do it same day, before the conversation ends if possible. Access should be cut at the same moment the news is delivered, not sometime this afternoon. And review activity on departed accounts for a window afterward. 30 days is a reasonable default, so if something unusual happens on an account that should be inert, someone actually notices instead of it going unwatched indefinitely. None of this requires new software or a security budget. It requires a list that already exists before you need it, and one person whose job it is to work through it. The same principle that shows up in every other episode of this series. The plan has to exist before the Monday morning you need it. Here's a 5-minute test you can run today. Pick any current employee, doesn't matter who. Ask whoever normally handles departures, if this person left today, could you list every tool, login, and shared credential they have access to, right now, without guessing? Not probably everything, an actual complete list. If the honest answer is I'd have to think about it, boss, I'm not totally sure, that's the gap this video is about, and it's worth closing before you actually need it. Then ask 3 more questions, and write down the answers. 1. Do we have a written offboarding checklist, or does it depend on who's handling it that day? 2. Is there one person clearly responsible for every departure, start to finish? 3. Has anyone ever checked whether a former employee's access was actually fully removed, or do we just assume it was? If any answer is vague, write it down as a gap to close, not urgently, not in a panic, just before the next person leaves, whenever that turns out to be. If you found this useful, the earlier video on the 15-minute security audit covers how to build a first version of that access inventory from scratch, link on screen. Subscribe, and I'll see you next week.